Hello, this is Rob Spitzer with a Devar for Parshat Shlach. In the desert, God tells Moses, "Send out for yourself men who will scout the land of Canaan, which I'm giving to the children of Israel." The scouts, or spies as they're often referred to, were not just anyone, but chieftain of the 12 tribes. All of them were men of distinction. They were the heads of the children of Israel. Moses asked them to explore the entire area from the Negev into the hill country and to report back on the people, the cities, and fortifications, and to bring back some fruit. The scouts returned after 40 days and reported back to Moses, Aaron, and the community. They brought grapes, a pomegranate, and figs. Here's what they said. "We came to the land to which you sent us. It is flowing with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who inhabit the land are mighty, and the cities are extremely huge and fortified. And there we saw even the offspring of the giant. The Amalekites dwell in the southland, while the Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountainous region. The Canaanites dwell on the coast and alongside the Jordan." Then Caleb, one of the 12 spies, jumped in and countered, "Let's go up at once and possess it, for we are able to overcome it." But the rest of the scouts went on with him and said, "We be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." They continued, "The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people that we saw in it are men of a great stature, giants. Compared to them, we were grasshoppers." At this, the Israelites started wailing. Moses and Aaron plots at hearing their lack of faith. Joshua and Caleb tore their clothes and responded, "The land we scouted is exceedingly good land. If the Lord desires us, he will bring us to this land and give it to us, a land flowing with milk and honey." Caleb and Joshua were less than persuasive and were about to be stoned by the Israelites when God appeared and told Moses he'd had enough of the Jewish people who were soon to be destroyed. Moses pleaded, and the fatal decree was lifted, except for the 10 spies who counseled abandonment of the Canaan project for the nation. They did not live to see the end of that meeting. Caleb and Joshua were spared that fate. God said that the Jewish people would wander another 40 years in the desert, and that none of the current Israelites, except Joshua and Caleb, would see the new land. What does this story say about Jewish community leadership? The scouts were the princes of the nation, chieftains of the 12 tribes chosen by Moses, yet they apparently turned into cowards or intentionally misled the people. Why only 2 of 12 spies could see the opportunity as well as understood the divine support? Rabbi Jonathan Sachs calls their performance perhaps the single greatest leadership failure in the Torah. I wonder what the spies would have said in contemplating the modern Zionist movement, with the pioneers working to build a Jewish state out of the remnants of the Ottoman Empire and British Mandate, surrounded by well-armed hostile Arab nations. How many of the tribal chieftains would have tried to run the post-war British naval blockade of Palestine? What did the scouts mean when they said that the land devoured its inhabitants? One explanation is that they were afraid of losing their positions of influence as tribal chieftains, which they had in the desert. There would be a new order. What would be their place in it? A land that devours its inhabitants? Perhaps they thought their leadership positions would be devoured. Another explanation is that they misinterpreted God's providence as signs of evil. Rashi explains that the spies referred to the land as devouring its inhabitants because they were shocked by the unusually large number of funerals taking place all around them during their mission. Wherever they went, they found the inhabitants busy burying their dead. The 10 spies who brought back the negative reports assumed that the inhabitants were dying as a result of some harsh conditions of living in the land. However, Rashi says that there was a special reason for the presence of death everywhere. God had specifically orchestrated this so that the inhabitants would be too busy burying their dead to take any notice of the spies, who were not detected as intruders. Were the pessimistic spies right? The land is at a crossroads of continents, traversed by many people and trade routes. Throughout history, there have been battles for control of this land. Did they mean that whomever occupied the land would need to be armed and prepared to defend themselves, lest they be devoured by other groups? Looking at the modern state of Israel, you can see some truth in this view. Maybe they were prescient. Perhaps the spies were not animated by fear of physical defeat. Instead, they feared a kind of spiritual defeat. In the wilderness, each of the Israelites' needs was met by a direct gift from God. They did not work for their food. Their bread was the manna which fell from heaven. Their water came from Miriam's well. Their clothes did not need repair. The possession of the land of Israel meant a new kind of responsibility. The manna supply would end. Bread would come only through toil. The providential miracles would be replaced by labor. And with labor came the danger of a new preoccupation. The spies may have feared that a concern to work the land and make a living might eventually leave the Israelites with progressively less time and energy for the service of God. They said, it's a land which eats up its inhabitants, meaning that the land and its labor and the preoccupation with the materialistic world would swallow up and consume all their energies. Their opinion was that spirituality flourishes best in seclusion and withdrawal, in the protected place of the wilderness where even the food was from the heavens. Looking at the modern state of Israel, which is a working nation with real people of different religions and ethnicities, with physical threats, material inequality, and politics, one sees some of what the spies may have feared. In particular, when concerns for security seem to regularly trump important values taught in the Torah for how to treat others, we may seem to be devouring both Israel's neighbors and Israel's citizens in the exercise of sustaining the nation. It's useful at these times to remind ourselves to avoid the mistake of the 10 spies, of placing God outside of the world, of failing to respond to the divine presence in every human transaction. As Joshua and Caleb suggested, if the desire of the Lord is with us, our neighbors will help sustain us, and the world will be assimilated into holiness. May it come soon. Shabbat Shalom.